Okay.
Okay.
Clippity clap.
Clippity clappity. Flippity flappity.
No.
I don't know what's going on. I just work here.
Oh my god. Welcome to the True Crime ABC's podcast. I'm Dani.
And I'm Sarah. Take a journey with us through our alphabet of true crime, one letter at a time.
Listen through the end of each episode for reading recommendations and a sneak peek into what's going on in the podcast next week.
This episode is supported by the letter F. This week, F is for faith. It's about cults, guys.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about
Woohoo!
cults. Yeah, cults. Love a good cult. In another life, in another universe, I have a cult podcast instead of a true crime podcast.
I thought maybe you were going to share that you had been part of a cult.
I also have, no, I'm just kidding. I don't think I'm one of the people who could fall for the cult thing. I'm not buying whatever they're selling. I'm not buying.
I hear they have really good Kool-Aid.
And super fashionable choices with clothing. Some of which we will discuss today in my story.
Exciting.
Because we are talking about faith-based crimes this week and cult things, we have some cult statistics that we're going to chat about. From a 2016 article in the Tennessean, where cult expert Yanya Lalich was interviewed, a cult is defined as a group or movement held together by a shared commitment to a charismatic leader or ideology. It has a belief system that has the answers to all of life's questions, and offers a special solution to be gained only from following the leader's rules. It requires a high level of commitment from at least some of the members. It is actually hard to determine exactly how many cults exist in the world, as most tend to be secretive and or kind of aggressive to those who leave or speak out against the cult, but it is estimated that there are about 3,000 active cults in the United States alone.
That's a lot of cults.
That's a lot of cults, man.
So according to studies from the International Cultic Studies Association, which I did not know existed until this, there's an estimated 0.5 to 3% of individuals that are involved in a cult at some point in their life, which puts that number of people in cults around 1.65 million and 6.6 million, which is a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, really.
And, the average age of people in cults is around 25 years old as well.
That's about right.
That may be a little bit skewed, though, just because there's so many cults that have young children that may be there without their consent.
Sure.
Statistics from the Trauma Studies Center of the Institute for Contemporary Psychotherapy state the cult survivors in the United States experience PTSD at rates of 61.4% in men and 71.3% in women, which I think that's expected.
I'm honestly surprised it's not a little bit higher, just because there's usually sexual abuse involved with the female side of things.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it's about, mental control and fear and all of that. So,
yeah.
The average rate of PTSD in Americans, by the way, as a comparison, in general, is only 6.8%. So
that's crazy.
Huge differences there.
Yeah. No, thank you. Firm pass on the call. Again, whatever they're selling, I'm not buying.
So today we are talking about Ervil LeBaron.
What a name.
Yeah, he was...
who decided Ervil was a name?
Well, let me tell you who did that.
Okay.
It was...
I'm glad you know.
In part, his dad, Alma Dayer LeBaron Sr.
Oh, God.
Who, yeah.
We got all the names.
Well, Alma, Ervil's dad, was one of the, top people in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so he was a Mormon. And just a little bit of Mormon history. Back in 1890, the Church of Latter-day Saints actually, outlawed polygamy. They stopped practicing polygamy. Alma did not agree with that. There were other people that didn't necessarily agree with that. So they left the church, and Alma actually started his own sort of farm slash compound, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, in
that's
Mexico.
my dream.
Right. Yeah.
I want to be a cult leader. I don't want to be
boy.
in a cult. I just want to have a compound with all my best friends living on like 15 acres.
I think they call it something different when it's just like land and friends living together.
And friends, right. That's fair.
So Alma ends up moving down to Mexico basically to skirt the law because they want to practice polygamy.
How nice.
And when Alma passed away in 1951, he actually passed the church over to his son Joel. And Joel and Ervil were brothers. They ended up sort of running the church together. Ervil was number 2, sort of in line. And they ran the church together for a while. Ervil was not necessarily a nice dude, I guess. And he didn't really get along with the way that his brother was running things. Yes. So he decided that he was going to split off and make his own church, which was the Church of the Firstborn of the Lamb of God, which is a mouthful.
Yeah, why? Dude, keep it short. It's not going to fit on the pamphlet if it's so long.
Yeah, well, the name of the church that Joel was running was Church of the Firstborn of the Fullness of Times. So also a gigantic.
Christ.
I think it's a Mormon thing. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Somebody out there can maybe.
I love your musical.
Explain it to us a little bit better, but so you've got the church that Joel was running. Ervil split off and sort of started his own church. And at that point, it was like the 70s when this was happening, like the early 70s. And Ervil basically decided that he didn't like his brother really being around. So he ordered a hit out on his brother.
Oh, yikes. I don't think God likes that. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well,
pretty sure that's one of the big ones, not to, murder your family.
I think it's in the list of 10. But
yeah. Maybe hitting a couple of them, honestly.
Goodness. So Joel LeBaron was actually Ervil's first victim. Again, Ervil ordered the assassination. He didn't actually do it himself.
Right.
So this one...
Fairly certain God still counts that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So he also worked Ervil started working under this blood atonement law as well that was sort of expired by the Mormon church, but he was leaning pretty heavily on that.
Is that kind of like a pound of flesh style?
Sort of, yeah. Essentially, Jesus can't atone for the sins that you've done because they're so bad.
Oh.
So the only way to atone for those sins is to sacrifice yourself. I think there's different stipulations to it, but yeah, essentially it's justified.
Nice. What a blast.
Yeah. So Ervil, again, he started operating under this sort of like blood atonement law, and it really just sort of depended on if he didn't like you, if you fell into this. So there were a couple different religious leaders that were in sort of rival sects of the Mormon church.
Okay.
And if Ervil didn't necessarily like you, he would have someone take you out. So
Yikes.
It could be somebody who just looked at him cross. Maybe he saw them as a threat to his leadership, something like that. One point, I believe he had around 13 wives. He ended up fathering somewhere near 50 children.
It seems like so much work.
It's really, goodness. I guess, though, if you have, like, total control, it's just like, you're just ordering people around all day or whatever.
Right.
So the rival leaders that Ervil had, he ordered the killing of Bob Simon. That was in 1975. And then he also, in 1977, ordered the killing of Rulon Alfred, who was the leader of the Apostolic United Brethren, which is another Mormon fundamentalist sect of the church.
But not part of their...
Correct.
Compound or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then Ervil decided that Rena Chenoweth who was his 13th wife.
Was the number 13 significant, or was that just what he was on?
No. So actually, I'm sorry. His 13th wife ended up killing Ervil's stepdaughter, so her own daughter.
Oh, yikes.
So yeah, so he ordered the killings of those two leaders of the church. He also turned on members of his own cult. So of course, if there were like internal power struggles, disputes,
Right.
he went after a couple of family members as well. So not only did the people in the cult sort of suffer his wrath here, but he also, in 1977, he ordered the murder of two people that had left the cult. And this was ultimately what led to his capture. Was these cases right here. They had a ton of media coverage, all of that. So of course there was a lot of steam behind trying to solve the case.
Did he actually murder them, or did he just order it?
So
Or like, were they actually murdered?
They ordered it, but yeah, they were actually murdered, yes.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, so his 10th wife, Vonda, was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. So the people that he ordered to kill these people were members of the cult, were his wives, were people that were close to him. So he sort of used them to do his bidding.
It's not for me. Unless I'm the cult leader, of course. We've already established
right.
this.
There's clearly more benefits to play that role. Let's just call that what that is.
Oh, gosh.
So finally, on June 1st, 1979, Ervil was actually apprehended by police in Mexico, extradited to the U.S., where he was convicted of having ordered one of the deaths of Alfred. And then in 1980, he was actually sentenced to life in prison. He ended up going to Utah State Prison. And he served there until 1981, where he died of an apparent suicide.
Interesting. Wow.
So yeah, this guy, he was known as the Mormon Manson. Because again, he had his cult followers sort of do his bidding and take out, carry out a lot of the actual crimes.
I love a good alliterative nickname. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm glad he got life in prison.
Yep.
I feel like some of those guys really kind of get away with it for a little while. I mean, even Manson had his own little defense in the fact that he didn't actually kill anybody, but...
Right. I don't know if, what LeBaron's stance on it was officially, but while he was in prison, he wrote a 400-page, quote-unquote, Bible.
Me Manifesto?
Yeah, basically. It was called the Book of the New Covenants, which, of course, included a commandment to kill disobedient church members.
What on earth, dude? You're not, like, parole's not looking hot for you if that's the case.
So...
About that. Oh my God. What is wrong with people? Why are they so dumb?
Well, good news is he only printed and distributed about 20 copies. So...
Oh, okay.
Where
to get the paper?
I don't know. Prison's a crazy place.
It's got to cost a lot in commissary, my friend.
All right. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit crazy that, not really crazy, but very interesting that goes all the way back to the family and, all of these different sort of breakouts of the different sect of the Mormon church. All of that is really crazy how it just breaks out and like, oh, we're going to start a different church because we,
right.
Don't like you or what have you.
I do have a dear, dear friend who's LDS and she's wonderful. So I'm not going to hold it against the entirety of the church.
No, I feel like this is definitely a level of like extremist craziness.
Yeah, for sure. This is the Al Qaeda of Islam, but for the LDS church. Yeah. Ah, crazy! Oh my gosh, people suck. I'm gonna start a cult.
No, I don't think it's not a good plan.
But listen, the cult is going to be about how sucky people are. We're going to be the People Suck Cult. PSC. Okay, are you ready?
I'm buckling in. Yep, let's go.
Today, I'm talking about a religious group that started originally in India in the 1970s. So, the Rajneeshee movement was founded by a guy named Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh. And yes, I did look up all these pronunciations.
That was really great. You did a great
Yeah.
job with that.
Who later became known as Osho, which is a whole lot easier to say. Um, and the Rajneeshee movement basically combined a little bit of Eastern spirituality with like personal growth mindset and some sprinkling ins of alternative living stuff. And Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, or Osho, was really charismatic. He was a known debater, like he was a wonderful speaker.
Okay.
He was fairly soft and seemed kind. Maybe wasn't always so kind, but he was able to attract a huge global following with teachings that really emphasized meditation, open sexuality. He had quite a few teachings on that, and basically like pursuing personal freedoms,
Okay.
which I mean, again, I can understand some of the stuff that he says. I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
I can see why people jumped on.
Yeah.
In the early 1980s, the group purchased a 64,000 acre ranch called Muddy Ranch in southern Wasco County, Oregon, which became basically their compound. That was their commune. Initially, the locals in the area were kind of just amused by their new neighbors. But that amusement quickly turned sour, and the activities of the Rajneeshees led to tension within the community, which eventually resulted in legal disputes and later a conflict known as the Rajneeshpuram crisis. The whole basis of the Rajneeshee movement was they were trying to create like a utopian society, but that didn't include all of the people around them. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it was utopia for the people in it, but maybe not so utopian for those surrounding.
Right. Not everybody was in on the on the Utopia.
They weren't on board. Bhagwan had, or Osho, I'm going to call him Osho.
Mm-hmm.
So Osho had like a partner, kind of, I mean, more like an assistant. Ma Anand Sheila was one of the prominent women in the movement. She was Osho's personal secretary and a spokesperson for him while they established the commune and in the years following that establishment. So, a little bit about the actual cult. There were quite a few rules and guidelines that were established by the leadership. The intention of the rules were that it would create a structured environment that adhered to Osho's spiritual teachings. And so I made like a list of some of the rules, and we're also going to talk about they had their own 10 commandments. So
Oh
I'll
boy.
let you know
Okay.
about those. So the first thing that most of the members did was dynamic meditation, and it was kind of like their signature move. Each of the members were required to be involved in a structured process of catharsis. It might include like a week where they had to laugh for so many hours a day, or like a week where they had to weep for so many hours a day, which sounds exhausting. And then usually ended with kind of structured silence and then different forms of physical activity. The members were encouraged to participate in these meditations because it was supposed to help them express and expel their emotion. I assume to achieve some form of kind of nirvana, whatever their equivalent of nirvana is.
Right.
Members were also expected to follow a dress code. I love a cult dress code.
Okay.
The one thing with this cult that's a little bit different is they did encourage individuality, but being part of the collective meant that they were supposed to wear red, orange, or pink. If you were walking around Antelope, Oregon, and you saw somebody in red, orange, or pink, like head to toe, they were probably a Rajneeshee member.
Okay.
They also had mandatory group activities, again, including those meditation sessions. Also, they had like dances and communal celebrations. They were designed to foster a sense of belonging, right? Spiritual growth within the community,
Okay.
which again, I can kind of see why people fell for it. It seems,
Yeah. It was the 70s too, right?
yeah, they're having dances, you're meditating, you're weeping, you're laughing. Sounds great. I'm here for it. They also had the sannyas initiation.
What is that?
Oh, let me tell you. Once you joined the movement, they gave you a new name. You were given a mala, which was like a special beaded necklace. And then you took vows to follow the teachings of Bhagwan or Osho. Yeah, so again,
Okay.
it's like a fraternity initiation, but without the hazing. Kind of seemed like a nice thing. I'm sure what really set forth the movement is this next one, especially in the 70s, the idea of open sexuality. So the Rajneeshees were known for their kind of unconventional ideas about sexuality. The whole point was to be open and liberated and to explore your own desires and to stretch the boundaries of sexuality. And that really could have meant anything. Whatever your boundaries for sexuality were, like, expel yourself past them.
Interesting.
There's a Netflix special about this called Wild Wild Country. I watched a couple episodes. It is truly a wild, wild experience. And I keep wanting to hear from, like, couples in this, because I assume open sexuality, if you went into it as a married couple, I assume that would be an open marriage if you're part of this open sexuality thing. And that just...
If it wasn't when you went in, it probably was when you were going out.
Yeah, so you were encouraged. Yeah, so, again, they also had silence and meditation retreats. Again, just extended periods of introspection, meditation as part of growing the spiritual experience. This next one is where we get into heavy cult shit. Surrender to the guru.
And the guru is...
Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, the leader. Yeah.
Of course he is.
One of the main ideas of the movement was that you had to surrender yourself, give your complete trust and faith in his guidance and wisdom. Which is perfect for the last thing we're going to discuss, which is the material contribution of the members.
Oh, what?
So members were often required to make financial contributions, which may have been, like, that money was then used to construct facilities, maintain the ranch, other communal activities, and I'm sure to pad Ma Anand and Osho's pockets.
I'm sure.
All right, now, one day somebody had asked Osho if he had, like, a 10 Commandments, and he sort of jokingly gave an answer. But I'm going to say right now, like, I get it. I get these. These commandments are great. Like, if you are a go with the flow kind of gal or dude or non-binary pals, this is for you. Like, this is the one. The Osho's 10 Commandments. Number 1, never obey anyone's command unless it is coming from within you also, which seems to go against the whole, like, surrender to the guru, but whatever. Number 2, there is no God other than life itself. Number 3, truth is within you. Do not search for it elsewhere. Yeah, wouldn't want to research or learn more about anything. Number 4, love is prayer. Number 5, to become a nothingness is the door to truth. Nothingness itself is the means, the goal, and the attainment.
Maybe this guy just like quiet.
He's like, everybody shut the heck up.
He wanted everybody to just sit in a room and be quiet.
Everybody play corpse.
And be introspective all the time. Close your eyes. We're going to meditate for the next 5 hours. Everybody just...
Number 6, life is now and here. Number 7, live wakefully.
These are like the most vague.
And they're so, like, just lay about and do nothing and be quiet. It's wild. Number 8, do not swim, float. Okay.
I need more specifics.
Yeah,
like,
I need context for this, sir.
In the water only? Am I supposed to... What?
I don't know. I assume it's a metaphor, but, like,
Okay.
I need more. Number 9, die each moment so that you can be new each moment.
No.
These feel like bad bumper stickers.
No, these are bad Hallmark cards for sure.
Yeah.
Like terrible greeting cards.
So bad. This last one, I feel like it is the cult thing. Like, this is the thing. Like, so number 10 is do not search. That which is. Stop and see.
That sounds like something Michael Scott would say. Can we just...
100%. He wrote this on a whiteboard for the whole office to see.
Oh my gosh. On a side note, can we like make that
Oh
into
my
a
God.
sticker or a coffee mug or
Yes,
something
we
and have
can.
our logo on it? Like,
Can we just put do not swim, float? True Crime ABC's podcast.
oh my God.
Oh shit. Life is now and here.
What was
Do
the
not
last
search.
one?
Do not search. That which is.
Yeah, that's the one.
Stop and see. Stop and see the True Crime ABC's podcast. And by see, I mean listen. Oh gosh, there's still so much more. We haven't even gotten into the crimes yet.
Let's go. Let's go.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So as the Rajneeshees got bigger, the community grew. They gained quite a bit of prominence. So then did the escalation of some controversy. They were involved in a number of criminal activities in Oregon in the 1980s, some of which are going to be a little bit mind-blowing if you don't know this story.
Okay.
So, some of those notable crimes. First of all, immigration fraud, which I feel like is pretty...
That seems pretty in their wheelhouse.
Yeah, it seems right? They started in India. Of course, they're going to have, people immigrating.
Yes.
So, the Rajneeshees faced accusations of conducting sham marriages in order to obtain green cards fraudulently.
Okay.
So this was part of, again, their effort to make the community bigger, right? They were shipping in people who were going to follow those commandments and follow the requirements of the community. All right, this next one is crazy. So they got in trouble for election manipulation and election fraud.
What?
So, because they were now part of this small community in Oregon, like they were part of a town, they attempted to control the local government. So, they targeted the elections of nearby towns, either putting their own people on it or by busing in homeless people from everywhere, from around the country, to register as voters in Wasco County, where the ranch was located. They gave them food and housing and a nice life, so they got people then to vote and do what they wanted.
I mean, it's a pretty smart business tactic.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But
The next thing they did was also a little bit of election manipulation. So they were involved in a bioterror attack.
okay.
Ugh, let me blow your mind. One of their most infamous incidents, like if you know this story, it's probably because of this. They intentionally contaminated salad bars and local restaurants with salmonella, which caused over 700 people to get sick. And they did this around voting times to keep the local people from getting to vote and then influencing the outcome of that election.
That's insane.
Isn't that insanity? Why? Like, oh my gosh. So, again, that's the thing that they're probably most known for. Most of the things they did were nonviolent. This is the one though where like this is where the naughty comes in. Like this is where you get life in prison type stuff.
I'm sorry. I'm just imagining like a bunch of people wearing red and orange and what was the other color? Pink.
Pink, yep.
Just walking into like a Ruby Tuesdays, like contaminating the
just, like,
salad bar.
Just sprinkling
Like,
stuff all
what?
over. Ugh. They also were involved in setting fire to their own buildings in order to destroy evidence that could then be used against them in the other criminal investigations.
Yeah.
And they also were found to wiretap their own members' conversations, which is nice of them.
Well, in the name of control, right?
Yep.
Goodness.
They were involved in some illegal land development. Again, they had their own construction and things going on. They never obtained a permit. So they were pretty regularly violating local zoning laws and land use regulations. Mm-hmm. And, like, you're in the Pacific Northwest. Like, people care about that stuff there. So, like, you're not getting away with that for very long. A few people involved had assault and threat investigations against them. There were some allegations of physical assault and threats against people who tried to stop the Rajneeshees or people who tried to investigate what was really going on.
Oh.
And again, that was pretty much between members of the community and members of the Rajneeshee community and members of the local area. Mm-hmm. They were also known to misuse charity funds. The movement's finances were pretty thoroughly scrutinized. accusations popped up fairly quickly about the misuse of funds that they had collected for charity
Mm-hmm.
that then were used to buy extravagant things like luxury cars and fancy things that, I mean, if you're just going for spiritual balance and wellness, you probably don't need the BMW, right?
Well, you gotta be able to get around in style.
I know, right? And then the last thing, again, not a very big thing, but they were known to secretly record conversations of members without their knowledge. Again, raising concerns about like invasion of privacy. And it's weird that it was mostly against their own members. I assume it was people were getting to the point where, once it started going maybe a little bit bad, they started to record. Or maybe they used it as like blackmail against people who wanted to leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So those many criminal activities are what eventually led to the downfall of the community in Oregon. Notice I didn't say the downfall of the entire movement.
Right. Jeez.
Yeah. Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, or Osho, was arrested and deported, and the group's leadership faced legal consequences for their actions. For instance, Ma Anand Sheela was charged and convicted of several crimes related to her involvement in the Rajneeshpuram movement. In 1986, she ended up pleading guilty to charges of attempted murder, conspiracy to commit wiretapping, and immigration fraud. Those charges were connected to other illegal activities carried out by the leadership, including like the poisoning of the salad bars and the wiretapping and all that stuff. She was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, but was released on parole after 39 months.
What?
She poisoned hundreds of people and served just over 3 years.
And that wasn't the only thing she did. Like, but
No. And I mean, and again, she just messed with a bunch of people's heads, and like this community was out of control. No, I don't think I said the. So 1985 was when Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh was arrested and deported. And then Ma Anand Sheela was the year after. But after Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh was deported, he kind of bounced around to various countries until he settled in Pune, India, where he continued to teach the Rajneeshee movement ideals until he died in 1990.
of course.
Following his death, the Rajneeshee movement underwent a bit of a transformation. It sort of split into various factions. Some continued his original teachings. Others focused more on like his spiritual legacy. It doesn't track for me, guys. He's a bad guy. The movement's name was changed to the Osho International Foundation in an effort to distance itself from the Rajneeshee name. This is one of those cults where it's like 50-50. You don't really say the survivors of this cult, right? Half of them still feel that they had a positive experience that helped their lives.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in the realm of like personal growth, finding spirituality, being able to be yourself and be calm and be okay with that. Again,
All that quiet time.
yeah, so much silence. It's not, again, not for me, guys. Silence is not for me. And then others, the other half of that were being manipulated and exploited by the leadership. Yeah. And the Rajneeshee movement, had a pretty significant impact on the overall spiritual practices of like contemporary movements. I think it gave a bad name to a lot of Eastern spirituality movements. Like it just gave it a bad name. I think people probably apply these teachings and bad things to what are otherwise not a negative experience in a movement. But overall, again, the legal issues and the bioterror attack stuff, at least they kind of got what they deserved, the leadership. It's kind of garbage that Ma Anand Sheela was only in jail for 3 years, but I don't think anybody actually died. So there was no actual murder charges or anything.
Okay.
People just got sick. And it was mostly just an invasion of privacy for the community members. When we like read the PTSD statistics, there weren't many people involved in the movement who seemed truly broken.
Yeah.
Or traumatized. It just seems sort of like a little smudgy spot in their history. So that is the Rajneeshees in beautiful Oregon.
Interesting. Very interesting.
It's crazy. Crazy cuckoo bananas.
It's like they went in, picked a small town, like a small, quiet community and like tried
Yep.
to take it over by volume, you know, just by outnumbering the people that had been there.
They knew what they were doing. It's like
So-
the zombie apocalypse of cults.
Oh boy.
There's the numbers. The numbers keep growing. They keep taking over. So,
Well, thanks for sharing.
yeah. Thanks for being here with me, friend.
Of course.
Book recommendations this week. From my story, we have a book called Rajneeshpuram, Inside the Cult of Bhagwan and Its Failed American Utopia by Russell King. And it's basically like an expose about everything that happened in the cult. It unveils a lot of the controversial things that went down, as well as it has kind of insider information about the inner workings of the movement. It's really good. I read quite a bit of it in like just one sitting. It was super
Nice.
good. Highly recommend. If you are at all into cults, this one's a win.
Awesome. The book that I'm bringing this week is called The Polygamist Daughter, a memoir. And this is written by the daughter of Ervil LeBaron. And it's written by Anna LeBaron. So it will go into some of the really crazy details that sort of unfolded with this case. Next week's episode will be supported by the letter G. Check us out on social media and give us your best guesses on what our theme for next week will be.
If you'd like to hear more from us, please check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and Patreon at True Crime ABC Podcast, or email us your thoughts, ideas, and listener stories to truecrimeabcpodcast@gmail.com. Bam!
Nice.
One of my coworkers who has listened to every episode, hi Nora, they have been listening to the podcast, and they lived right where my story was from last week.
Ooh.
The Oshman sporting goods store that got robbed in my story was the one they went to. That was like their
What?
sporting goods
Oh
store.
my
Yeah,
gosh.
isn't that wild? Yeah, so I thought that was crazy. She was all excited telling me about it at lunch today.
That's
So
very cool.
I just thought I'd share that. That's super fun.
So
So hi
many-
Nora, hi Michael. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
So thanks, Dani, for being my best friend and doing this crazy thing with me. And thanks, everybody, for sticking with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening.